As it turns out, Joe and Anthony Russo can make a film with Chris Hemsworth as the protagonist where his character has undergone emotional trauma and is clearly suffering from depression and some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder without making him the butt of a bunch of fat-shaming jokes. Who would have thought? Yes, I am still salty, because quite frankly, Thor should have one-shot Thanos with Stormbreaker and Mjolnir in Endgame. Sorry, that's just how it should have happened. Anyways, let's get to the review of Extraction. Extraction is a Netflix original movie courtesy of director Sam Hargrave and produced by Joe and Anthony Russo, also known as, well, Joe and Anthony Russo, who directed Captain America the Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. And the screenplay was written by Joe Russo. Extraction is based on a novel, apparently. However, I have not read it, so I am just going to be reviewing this based on its merits as a film. And as a film, Extraction is pretty good. It's solid entertainment. It is by far the best thing Netflix has given us during this quarantine, because it certainly wasn't Tiger King. Extraction is, narratively, it's nothing you haven't seen before. It's pretty beat for beat. It does what it has to do. It goes along the action movie path. But the action scenes are really, really good. They're very well choreographed. They're very well shot. You can see everything that's happening. And quite frankly, there were some really inventive action sequences in this movie. But the thing that stood out to me the most was actually how impressive the camera work in this movie was, because quite frankly, during the action sequences, there were not that many cuts, and that's always nice, I think. It's nice to see what's happening, it's nice to have a clear sense of geography, and it's nice when the camera just kind of lets the scene play out, and that's what happens in this movie, and so it earned a lot of points with me for that, because it gave me all of those things that I look for in an action sequence, and it's just really refreshing to see. It's sort of John Wick-esque. It's not exactly the same thing. It's really hard to replicate that style, but you can tell that a lot of those action sequences were heavily inspired by the John Wick series. So that's an endorsement. But as far as the narrative of the film goes, it is pretty generic. It's nothing you haven't seen before. Mercenary has to secure the package. In this case, it is a young boy. Get him to the rendezvous, get him to safety. And there is a little bit of nuance to Chris Hemsworth's character, in the sense that there is some depth to his character. He does have a backstory that's clearly alluded to through temporary flashbacks that are played out like a dream. But the movie doesn't really let these moments breathe very often, because it's just trying to keep the action going most of the time, and I understand that. But I do think that during the brief moments where Chris Hemsworth is actually given time to sort of explore his character, which, yes, is two-dimensional, but when he is given the time to sort of explore that character, I actually think he does a pretty good job with it. He does a good job of playing the stoic, kind of brooding protagonist, which, it's nice to see. It's nice to see these MCU actors have fun in non-Marvel movie roles, because you can clearly tell that Chris Hemsworth is having the time of his life playing this role, just being able to cut loose and play someone other than Thor. And that's not a criticism. I love Thor. He's my favorite character in the MCU. But it is nice to see Chris Hemsworth outside of that and sort of broaden his horizons. That said, this movie is largely carried by the action sequences and a very charismatic performance from Chris Hemsworth. Outside of that, there's not much to this movie. It's nothing you haven't seen before. The narrative is nothing special. But like I said, there is just enough meat to chew on to make you sympathize with Chris Hemsworth's character, and there is a nice bond that's developed between Hemsworth and the kid throughout the film, kind of a surrogate father-son relationship dynamic that ends up playing out, and it is pretty emotional depending on how invested you are in these characters. And because I was just absolutely 100% in on this movie, because it was sold as Chris Hemsworth kicking everybody's ass, and I am here for it. So I was invested in the movie, I was invested in the characters, and because of that, I was pretty much moved by the emotional aspect of the relationship between those two main characters, and that made the ending a little bit more impactful. I can't say it'll be impactful for everyone, but you know what? It worked for me. It did the job. And quite frankly, with movie theaters not being open, I think Extraction is a pretty good action movie. Really, really good in terms of the action scenes. Some of the best I've seen in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend Extraction because, you know what? Mostly everybody has Netflix. So it's 2 hours of a good time. It's thrilling. It's exciting. The camera work is very frenetic. It has a lot of energy to it. There are some nice long takes. The action sequences are great. Choreography is phenomenal and inventive. Hemsworth delivers a very charismatic, very good performance. And there's just enough pathos to this movie to keep you invested. It's not all noise and pretty visuals, which, by the way, there are moments in this movie where you can tell that it had a limited budget, but that's not really a problem. It didn't take me out of the movie. It didn't bother me. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend Extraction because it is a good time. It's something to watch during all of this. And like I said, mostly everybody has Netflix anyway. It's 2 hours long. It's tight. It's lean. It's fast-paced. And it's going to entertain you. Some of the dialogue is pretty questionable, but you know what? It's an action movie, you know? And I'm not trying to pass this off as saying, oh, we need to have low standards. It's just, the reality is 60% of movies are okay to good, 30% are bad, and 10% are great. Extraction, it's good. It's entertaining, so I recommend it. Give it a watch. Let me know what you think. And if you disagree, you know what? I'm bringing it back. If you want to tell me how wrong I am in the comments, how terrible my opinion is, or how foolish I am because I dare to have an opinion that is different from yours, comment below and let me know. Because if you want to tell me how wrong I am, that is well within your right. Express yourself. Allow yourself to feel the emotions that you're feeling during this time. May your heart be your guiding key. I will see you next time. Goodbye.